Welcome to Yury Experience, and today I want to talk to you about menstrual cycle. Today is the next video of my sex educational series, and today we will be talking about menstrual cycle because it's something that a lot of men find fascinating. We don't really know a lot about it. And to be honest with you, most of men are not fascinated with it in a good sense. Most of people don't find it really nice to see something that is connected to that. Somehow overall this whole topic of our genitalia is something really strange to share, but periods are really on a high position in that. Like, we don't want to talk about it at all. I assume it has something to do with blood, and blood comes out and people are, wow, blood. I don't know, but that is something that is really important and that people need to understand, in my personal opinion. Obviously, if you are a person who does have periods, I don't think I will share a lot of light on the topic for you, but maybe you will find some interesting information too. And if you don't have periods, welcome to the conversation. Let's go. But obviously, prior to us going into the topic, I have to tell you that this is Yury Experience, and here I share my various experiences and my various knowledge about different topics. I do 2 videos per week, Mondays and Thursdays. If you will enjoy this video, please drop a like and also subscribe to the channel. Let's go. Obviously, I have to do a couple of announcements. Announcement number 1, I am not a person who've ever experienced periods, and I am not a scientist person who learned about periods specifically. I did my fair share of research and I have my basic medical education, not really medical education, medical physicist education, so I will share my view on that. If you have information that is different to mine, share it and we will look on it. Maybe I'm really wrong about what I will discuss today, but overall I will discuss pretty basic stuff. But even if we are discussing basic stuff, I may say wrong terminology. That's announcement number 2. I am not perfect in terminology when it comes to periods. Big part of it is because I learned about the subject in 3 various languages and all of them are mixed up in my head. I try to write it down, so there is my whiteboard where I write down everything that I need for the video, and I try to write it down, but I still can make mistakes. If you will see a name of something that is different from what I'm talking about, the correction will be written somewhere. I always correct myself if I understand that I was wrong during the editing. And the main announcement from which I will actually start the actual topic. Each and every woman is different. Each and every body is different. There are similarities, there are some commonalities, but overall, all the values that I will tell today are averages, are ranges. There is no one number that fits all. In all terms, in every term. And sometimes how physiologically it works in specific body can also be different because of different reasons. Genes, illnesses, maybe some differences in anatomy in that specific person. So the information that I will provide you today is basic knowledge, is something that is average, that fits most of people, but not all of them. This is important. Let's actually start. Menstrual cycle basically contains some changes in a woman's body during some period of time. Basically, this period of time is defined from shedding of blood to shedding of blood. Why exactly does blood comes out of female body? We will discuss in a moment. The duration of menstrual cycle is different for each person, from 21 to 35 days, and the median, so around 50% of women, have a value of 28 days. That is basically the reason why a lot of day values that I will provide in this video are for 28-day cycle. And it's also a really easy number to remember. Menstrual cycles start at puberty and basically end around menopause, which comes normally somewhere between 45 and 55 years old for all women. That's actually the moment when women cannot get pregnant, because menstrual cycle is straightly connected to being pregnant, strictly connected to creating life, but also shedding blood. So you need to have both. Speaking of bleeding, so this process of bleeding, shedding blood, continues around 3 to 8 days with average number of 5 days. Most of women shed the most of the blood that they shed during the first 2 days. Amount is not as big as sometimes people try to make it appear. 2 to 3 tablespoons of blood comes out of women's body. We need to add to that fluid, the other fluids that also come together, like different lubricants and whatnot, but overall that is not like really huge amounts of body. That's not a waterfall. That's literally 2 or 3 tablespoons with a couple of tablespoons of other liquids. Prior to going to actual menstrual cycle, I will share an interesting fact. There are not so many animals in the world, and we are basically animals, that have menstrual cycle. There are a couple of types of primates, then some bats, what I find really fascinating, and spiky mouse, and one other type of animal. So these animals are quite random, so primates is something that you would expect, but bats and mouse and mice and whatnot, it's not something that is understandable. That is also the question what scientists to this day try to understand. Why evolutionarily did it make sense to shed this blood? Why did it make sense to destroy part of your tissues and make it so throw them out of your body? Although there is another way. A lot of other animals have different cycle, estrous cycle if I'm not mistaken. And there the same tissue that is shed by human body is remaining in the body, I think reabsorbed or stuff like that. But more about that in a moment. The menstrual cycle overall is a huge system with a lot of interactions between different organs, between our brain and ovaries of female bodies, and this whole interaction works through hormones, mostly. I will not tell you the specific point where this hormone comes into play because I don't think it is useful for most of us, except if you have problems with it, but then you shall go to the doctor, and that's a different topic. But overall, these hormones are the most important hormones when it's coming to menstrual cycle, and they are kind of messengers between different organs. Now you need to do that, now you need to do that, and now you need to stop doing that, basically. The organs that I will be talking about today are uterus, fallopian tubes, and ovaries. These are most important organs from female reproductive system for this topic, although there are other organs in female reproductive system. By the way, if you didn't watch my video about female reproductive system, watch that video prior to this one. I actually had to mention it at the beginning, I forgot. Go there, then come back. Overall, menstrual cycle can be divided in 2 cycles, or like combination of 2 cycles: ovarian cycle and uterine cycle. Most of the explanations actually cover ovarian cycle, so what is happening in ovaries, with including of information of uterine cycle. So they are kind of combined during most of the explanations. If you want to have a really clear separation between these two, go and look into it. It's not that difficult of information to find. I will do a more traditional way, what is happening in ovaries and how it influences uterus. Overall, ovarian cycle consists of 3 phases. These are follicular phase, ovulation, and luteal phase. And basically these are kinda 2.5 phases, because ovulation continues only for 24 days, why I will mention that in a moment, and follicular phase and luteal phase each continue for around 14 days. And we start with luteal phase. And what do we have there? We have the menstruation. That's actually the shedding of blood, the destroying of tissue, which tissue I will cover in a moment. But that is actually the beginning of menstrual cycle, because that's something that is easy to measure or easy to understand when it is happening, because there's like blood going out. During the same time, ovaries are already thinking, okay, let's go for another one, let's go for another round, let's do it again. And they start to creating small follicles inside of itself. So both of ovaries work independently, and in each of these are different follicles in creation. That is basically why this phase is called follicular phase, because follicles are created in there. Why are these follicles important? After some time, 12 to 14 follicles that were created during the beginning of the cycle start to disappear, and only one remains. It's kind of the main follicle, the follicle which has the most power. It remains and grows further. And inside of the follicle we have an egg or egg cell. And obviously this egg cell is not fertilized yet, because there was no sperm that is around there or inside in there. But it is created in a follicle during the follicular phase. During this time, ovaries create hormones that are talking to uterus and saying, okay, you are done with your special tissue, you destroyed it and shed it out of the body, create it in you. And uterus is saying, okay, let's go for it. And uterus creates extra level of tissue, which target is only to get an egg when it comes and help it to grow into embryo. This tissue has a lot of blood supply to it, so it can provide enough nourishment for embryo, and exactly this tissue is the main target of menstruation. This tissue is getting destroyed each and every cycle basically and shed out of the body together with this. There's some blood to it, and there are also obviously other liquids, different kinds of mucus that is also in the body itself. So everything gets shed. And basically that's the main difference between human and a couple of other animals to other animals. This exact tissue, epidermal, if I'm not mistaken, that's the official name. This exact tissue is reabsorbed by most of animals. Human body decided to go a different way. Human body decided, no, we will not do it that way, we'll just destroy it and shed it. But other animals are like, we will reabsorb it and rebuild it. Why? There are a couple of assumptions, but nothing that is yes, it is like that. If we are looking on the 28 menstrual cycle, then this phase goes from day 1 till day 14. And day 14 is the main day. That's the ovulation day, again, for 28-day cycle. And during ovulation, basically, egg goes away from the ovaries and goes in the fallopian tubes. And it exists there for 24 hours. Or to be precise, it lives for 24 hours. If during these 24 hours no sperm found its way to an egg cell, or to actually both of these egg cells, because women have 2 ovaries and 2 fallopian tubes, if no sperm found their way to egg or egg cell, then these eggs die after 24 hours. This is basically the reason why female bodies cannot get pregnant all the time, every moment you want. No, there's some window, some time window when it can be happening. Basically, it is this 24 hours, but due to the fact that sperm can survive for 7 days inside of female body, inside of the reproductive system, usually, obviously. Thanks to that fact, you have more bigger window. You have 7 days window to basically pack the system with sperm, if you want to call it like that. And then this sperm just had to find its way to one or both of egg cells. Basically, that is how twins are created, so to call. So if both of egg cells are impregnated or fertilized, then fraternal twins will be created. These are more common twins. The other kind, not fraternal twins, their name is here, is when in one egg cell decides, okay, I will divide myself in 2. And these are one cell twins. And these are the twins that are very similar. Fraternal twins are basically 2 children that were born during the same time. That's the thing. And one cell twins are basically twins that were created from one cell, so they are really similar. That's the difference, kind of. Right after ovulation, or actually by the end of ovulation, starts the luteal phase. It's the phase that goes from the day 15 or day 14, depending how you define it, to day 28. So basically till the end of the menstrual cycle, till the moment when your body, or when female body decides, I need to shed blood again, I need to shed my tissues. You now know what tissues I mean. Depending on the fact whether egg cell was fertilized and whether egg cell managed its way to the uterus and to this tissue that was extra created for that and fixated itself on there, because it can also be a problem for some situations, some women, some egg cells. It's not always the case that egg cell finds its way easily. Anyway, if it didn't happen, if pregnancy isn't the case in this time, then the transformed form of a follicle that is still in the ovaries is stopping producing the hormone that is usually saying for this tissue that is in uterus to remain there. So basically ovaries are saying this tissue in uterus, epidermal tissue, destroy yourself. We don't need you anymore. On the other hand, if pregnancy is happening, if the egg was fertilized and it was fixed and it is in the position in the uterus where the embryo can be growing and get enough nourishment, then the same remaining transformed form of the follicle still produces a hormone that is saying to uterus, remain there, the tissue, we need the tissue, let's work together, let's create an embryo. Obviously it doesn't happen on the next day after ovulation. There is a different amount of time that the body thinks, do we have pregnancy or not? But basically when the body understood what is the case, either your hormones will go in the way I am a mother now, or your hormones will go in the way I need to shed more blood now. Some interesting facts. According to my understanding, not each menstrual cycle can lead to pregnancy. I think the number was around 2/3 of all menstrual cycles can lead to pregnancy, and this amount is different for people or for women bodies who are right after puberty, who are just started with menstrual cycle, and people who are like 10 years after that. And again, when the menopause comes, closely prior to that, the number changes again. Also, although I discussed this whole experience as something really fun and let's do it, no, and also most of women, okay, not most of women, but a lot of women experience different kinds of pains and different kinds of digestive system problems during the process. It's not really a fun experience. I don't know for how many women, but for a lot of women. Besides of that, I want to talk about influence of menstrual cycle on a normal person's life. And there is a stereotype that menstrual cycle has a huge influence and it affects the life like humongously. There is no way not to see that a person has menstrual or is in some phase of menstrual cycle. And that is not completely true. There are some influences, mainly physiological or like in your physical abilities, that are common for most of women. So depending on the stage of menstrual cycle, the physical abilities of a specific person can be different. But this whole idea that the person is more sensible or less sensible depending on the part of this or the phase of the cycle is kinda wrong. There was observed slight dependency based on the hormones, but as a whole, that's not the case. But we need to we need to say that PMS is the case, and PMS is something that is happening by a lot of women. PMS, also premenstrual syndrome, is according to my understanding, is kind of hypersensitivity to specific hormones by specific body parts. Yeah, point. And it can go from really mild case where women just, yeah, there are some differences, but they're not really huge, to really, really strong cases where people have really, really mental problems because of their menstrual cycle, or they have hypersensitivity, so you cannot touch them because that's that's a huge problem for them. PMS do not happen to all the people, so to all women. To a lot of them, but not to all of them. And also we need to say that PMS is mostly happening to people who have some problems in their lives. They have problems with nutrition, where they don't get enough sleep, they are stressed, they don't exercise enough. Overall, it's kind of general health problem, and that is something that you can help with. If you think that your partner or some friend of yours have problem with PMS, so first, actually you are not the person who shall help. Gynecologist or some different kind of doctor shall help. But if you decided to help with general health, help to get some sleep, help to get some physical activities, help to get good nutrition, that's what you can do, but not to create a stereotype and not to create extra stress for that person. That is definitely not something that will help during that person's menstrual cycle, independent of the fact does that person has PMS or not. Because if that person doesn't have PMS, you are just a bad person. I wanted to curse, I decided not to. I hope I didn't mess up big time during this explanation. Originally I wanted to discuss another topic together with this one in the same video, but I understood nope, they will not fit in the same video as long as I don't want to make a video for 1 hour, and I don't want to do it. Anyway, if you have some corrections to my words, if I misrepresented something, or if you want to share something, comments are open. Except for that, if you enjoyed the video, please drop a like. You can also subscribe to the channel. Have a great week. I see you on Thursday.